All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So, man, what a crazy day, right? We got Aaron Glenn hired as the team's next head coach. We're getting little rumors and suggestions about who's going to be on the staff. Of course, nothing is finalized. Lance Newmark, not named general manager. The New York Jets are quickly pivoting here. Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network is reporting that the New York Jets are reaching out to Trey Brown, who's currently with the Cincinnati Bengals as a senior personnel exec, and also assistant general manager of the Denver Broncos, Darren Mougey. Now, let's talk about him, right? Let's break them both down. In fact, Darren Mougey was actually in my personal group of finalists that I wanted the Jets to reach out to before all this Lance Newmark stuff came up. So, Darren Mougey's been, first of all, former player. He's only 39 years old, and he's already the assistant general manager of the Denver Broncos, right? Keep in mind, this organization is very close-knit. They identify people, and they allow them to work up through the ranks. You know, George Payton, big personality. Sean Payton, big personality, right? This is a team that is, they kind of feel like a fraternity to a certain degree, right? Like a brotherhood over in Denver. And it really does feel like they've turned the corner now with Sean Payton in year 2, well, going into year 3. Of course, Bo Nix selected in the first round. I mean, he looked flat out awesome. The team was a playoff squad. Vance Joseph absolutely killing it on the defensive side of the football. One of my favorite defensive minds in the game. Blitz heavy, 3-4, development of edge rushers on the outside. I love his defense. Just absolutely love it. Now, Moji, he's been described as someone who's well prepared, someone who communicates really, really well. He's been with the Denver Broncos since 2012 and actually won a Super Bowl with the Broncos, during that time. He has a background in scouting. And by the way, I've seen the argument, the Jets shouldn't go with a general manager with a scouting background because Joe Douglas obviously had that scouting background. Mike McCagnon has had the scouting background. Personally, I disagree with that, right? The New York Jets need to hire the most qualified and the most impressive candidate, whether they're on the finance side, whether they're on the scouting side. You know, if we're going to eliminate general manager candidates that have or that are coming from the scouting side of things, I mean, we're going to be crossing a ton of names off the list. I just don't think that's the most ideal way to do it. I think, you got to approach every interview with an open mind and be willing to listen and hear what these candidates have to say about your team. Now with Aaron Glenn, what's your vision? How would you work with Glenn? How would you work with this roster? Where do you see us in 3, 4, 5 years? And how are we going to get there? The candidates that give you the most impressive responses, that have the most, I would say, clear-cut plan, those are the candidates that the Jets should be talking to. So I'm actually really interested in Darren Mougey, right? This is someone who is well respected within that Denver Broncos organization. He's kind of the right hand to George Payton, right? Obviously, as that assistant general manager. Now, the other name on the list is Trey Brown, right? Senior personnel exec from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's been labeled as a quick riser, right? Again, scouting background here, came up with the New England Patriots and actually got in, right, cracked the NFL as a scout in 2010. It's 2025. In other words, he has not been doing this for a very long time. Former cornerback, spent a year with the Chicago Bears, but Trey Brown's someone who actually left the NFL for a little bit and then ended up coming back into the NFL, joining the Cincinnati Bengals, of course, as a scout, and then most recently, again, getting promotion from within, becoming that senior personnel exec. This is a really interesting candidate here, right? Because although he doesn't have, 30 years of experience, right? This is not someone who is bouncing around a ton of different franchises, has like this long resume. He obviously does not have general manager experience. But one thing that I find really, really interesting, so he's been with the Bengals since 2021, and the Bengals are a team, and this goes back to Marvin Lewis, but they're a team that really does a good job of identifying who fits with them. Think about all the star players on this Bengals team, whether they're draft picks, whether they're free agents. The Bengals have a lot of big names. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Orlando Brown Jr., Cam Taylor-Britt, Jermaine Pratt, Mike Hilton, right? Of course, Trey Hendrickson, the NFL sack leader. In other words, whether they're drafting a player, whether they're signing a player, you really get the sense that Cincinnati knows what they're doing from a player evaluation standpoint, right? Like we've seen, I mean, how many free agent signings, how many draft picks just whiffed under Joe Douglas? We see it not just a Joe Douglas problem, obviously. Tons of GMs miss on certain guys, but it really feels like with the Bengals, they don't really miss a whole lot, right? They're not out here spending a ton of money, bringing in a ton of guys, and it's like a 50-50 crapshoot on who's going to pan out and who's not. It feels very handpicked, very calculated behind the scenes. Yes, there's been some rumors that ownership doesn't really like to spend money, and they're not really at the forefront of going after the splashy contracts on that first wave of free agency. What's going to happen with T. Higgins' future? Can the Bengals even afford him? I don't know. But what we do know is that when the Bengals do make a move, offensive line, a piece on defense, Hendrickson was like this with New Orleans, or leaving New Orleans and coming over to Cincinnati. They seem to make the right decisions. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Trey Brown is the general manager behind it. He's the shadow GM, and he's been, handling all of the Bengals picks for the last 15 years, obviously. But you got to imagine if someone is in a well-established player evaluation organization right now, and he's also being labeled as a quick riser from within, maybe Trey Brown has more, how should I say this, more of an impact than what meets the eye on the outside. Maybe he does have a ton of very good ideas. Maybe he does have a very extensive, highly detailed process in which he evaluates players. To get a second interview with the New York Jets, a massive job, that's big time, right? For his current title with the Bengals. Here's the elephant in the room. Trey Brown, Darren Mougey, two, in the event that the Jets go with either of these guys, Lance Newmark, let's throw him in there, Chris Spielman, these are first-year guys. So, first-year head coach, potential first-year general manager. There's a lot of newness. There's a lot of fresh faces here. Again, new GM, new coach, new OC. What's going to happen with quarterback? What's going to happen with DC? Signs are pointing to Steve Wilkes, but again, not official. I think with this current structure, maybe a president of football operations would make some sense. An experienced president of football ops. But I got to say, I think experience is needed with this team at this given state. Of course, we can talk about the market size. Of course, we can talk about ownership. But just where the Jets are at right now with the zero culture, everyone's pointing the finger at each other, right? Who knows who's going to be on the roster moving forward? We have roster holes. We have depth issues. We have financial issues when it comes to the cap, right? Quarterback question mark. It seems like a very, very, very big job, and that might not be the most ideal situation for a first-year GM and a first-year head coach and a first-year OC. I think if we can maybe get someone who sits above the general manager, it would make sense. Preferably a veteran mind, preferably someone that knows the organization, preferably someone who can help out the front office here, give suggestions, have maybe the final call. Not necessarily do 100% of the work, obviously, but someone who is kind of directly reporting up top. Because we have seen this franchise take highly talented guys with high upsides, take them, chew them up, and spit them out a couple years later. And I don't want to see that happen again. Would a president of football operations solve everything? Probably not, but I think that'd be a step in the right direction. Now, look, Thomas Dimitroff is still out there. Connor Hughes reported that Ryan Grigson's out. I don't really foresee John Robinson getting the deal at this point. It feels like it's going to be, potentially one of these two guys. Maybe they call Newmark back. John Eric Sullivan has been my number one general manager candidate, but I feel like that's kind of, I don't know. We'll kind of see how that situation plays out. You got to imagine that because the Jets have hired a new head coach, that the general manager candidate has to love Aaron Glenn. And because if he doesn't, he's probably not going to get the job. What the hell's the point? You know what I mean? Especially with Jacksonville now opening up. What if Jacksonville goes out and get John Eric Sullivan? it's interesting, right? It's interesting for sure. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section about Darren Mougey, about Trey Brown. How would you like either of those guys? About Newmark too. And also, would you prefer president of football operations? I really think it's important if the Jets want to go down this route again, where it's first year GM, first year head coach, and I keep saying first year OC. The reasoning why is because, again, quarterback question mark, rookie, defensive-minded head coach. We're going to need someone to come in who can install an offense, potentially develop a quarterback, call plays, game plan effectively. If it's first year on the job and that candidate has not done any of those things by himself before, I could see potential problems looming. Think back, Mike LaFleur, right? Joe Douglas, obviously he was here before Saleh, but first year head coach, first year OC, first year quarterback and Zach Wilson, first year DC and Jeff Ulbrich. And we saw them have red flags, right? We saw areas in season where they struggled, right? They're learning on the fly. They have to learn on the go. You can't get experience without actually doing the job. Are the Jets in a position right now to where it is going to be just a ton of first-year guys just having a crack at it? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts down below, and as always, go Jets.